Can the ShockWiz really revolutionize your suspension, or is it all a bunch of hot air? Well, let's dig into this little guy and see what it's capable of. It seems everyone using the ShockWiz is riding full suspension and focused on airtime. However, they all rave about the ShockWiz and how it revolutionized their suspension. But what about less extreme folk? Would it help dial in the suspension on a hardtail, where the tires generally stay firmly planted on the ground? Quark claims it's for any riding style, any riding level. So why not give it a try? First off, what is the ShockWiz? This tiny gadget is an automated suspension tuning device specifically for air-sprung mountain bike suspension. If you're using coil suspension, you're SOL. The tiny computer inside this device analyzes your suspension travel many times per second to provide guidance on how best to adjust your suspension for the best possible ride. The promise is a personal suspension guru inside this tiny black box. The whiz part of the device is that it makes all these calculations and suggestions without really ever knowing what suspension you actually have. After calibrating this sucker, it knows everything it needs to process your rides and make recommendations. Now, my normal shock tuning process is pretty basic. I always set it a touch lighter than the manufacturer's recommendations and adjust the rebound to somewhere in the middle, and I generally set it once and leave it. Certainly, the ShockWiz can do a better job than that. To use the Wiz, you attach it to your fork or shock straighter valve and then zip tie the device to your bike. It only weighs 45 grams, so you'll quickly forget it's even there. And it doesn't affect how your suspension performs in any way. You don't actually interact with the device itself, but instead with an app on your phone. When you fire up the app, the first question you have to answer is if you want balanced or playful. Yeah, I had no idea what those meant either. Playful sounded fun, so that's what I chose. Disappointingly, the app doesn't provide any information to help you decide, so I had to check on their website. It says balanced provides an overall compromise between traction, suppleness, and pedaling efficiency. Balanced serves as a great baseline tune and is a favorite with ShockWiz users. However, playful allows for a perfect combination of traction, suppleness, and pedaling efficiency, but with a livelier feel to give the bike pop. So it seems the choice is a compromise or a perfect combination. Once hooked up, let all the air out of your fork and go through the configuration wizard to help it figure out your fork's compression ratio. This is done by repeatedly fully compressing and then fully extending your fork. While not complicated, this proved frustrating. The calibration kept failing because my pressure was too low, around minus 30 psi. It suggested adding air, so I did, and I finally got it to calibrate. But something wasn't right. After 10 plus hours of riding, it still had a very low confidence rating, kept suggesting the same type of riding over and over, and generally lacked any usable data or meaningful insights. For an app designed to help you tune your suspension, it can be surprisingly unhelpful. There is no guidance to make sure you're doing things right. It was clearly off, but at no point did it suggest starting over or any other mitigations. Honestly, I was about to give up and declare this thing snake oil. But after some online research, I found some random guy who was recommending letting air out of your fork slowly over several minutes. This would allow the fork to equalize its pressure and avoid the negative air pressure problem. This little nugget of info helped tremendously. After recalibrating, I set out on a local loop, hitting small jumps, rock gardens, slow climbs, and fast descents. It was a mix of everything I usually ride. To my surprise, the ShockWiz said it had all the data it needed and had a 100% confidence rating. Also, to my surprise, it said my setup was near perfect with a shock tuning score of 92. Its only suggestion was to make my low-speed compression a little firmer to reduce pedal-induced bobbing. The typical workflow after a ride is the ShockWiz presents you with a few suggestions, you then apply one of those suggestions, and then ride, rinse, and repeat until you have everything dialed. But apparently, I'm a suspension guru since I got everything right on my own. Speaking of suggestions, I suggest clicking like and subscribe below, as it really does help out the channel, and it ensures you don't miss any amazing cycling content. So, did the ShockWiz revolutionize my suspension? No. I honestly expected I'd be making a very different video. I thought I'd be telling you how your suspension is all wrong, and this bad boy would change your life forever. But that's just not the case. It turns out, at least for me, that my basic tuning process is pretty spot on. I came out of this with the exact same settings as I started with. Fortunately, I borrowed this ShockWiz. Had I forked over $350 for this, I'd really feel let down. So yeah, the price is crazy high. But it's worth noting that many bike shops have rental units available, and if you can't find a local shop, there are also companies online that will rent one to you. While I absolutely love the idea of the ShockWiz, it did basically nothing for me. Perhaps my experience would be different if I had a full suspension enduro rig, but perhaps not. So how about you? Did you have better luck with the ShockWiz? Let me know in the comments below.